Hello. Today we are going to talk about the early Earth and how the environment of the early Earth changed. So I'm drawing the Earth here. Green, because in the early Earth, the oceans were green. There was no oxygen, okay? There was also very little land. So there might be a small land mass, which I'm drawing here in red. Maybe one over here, but they weren't big like the continents that we have today. And all this was ocean. The only thing in those oceans were single-celled anaerobic life. Anaerobic means there's no oxygen. So this early life did not need oxygen and it didn't produce oxygen, okay? This is before there's anything on land. There's nothing on the land right now. So on all of these continents, it's just rock. That is it. All the life is in the ocean. And again, that life is very simple. In the atmosphere, we still had nitrogen, which we have today, a lot of nitrogen. And we had some other greenhouse gases. One of the big ones that we talk about a lot is carbon dioxide. So there was a lot of carbon dioxide as well. What you would not find in the atmosphere was oxygen. No oxygen at this point, okay? Eventually what comes along are your photosynthesizers. So our planet still looks the same. I mean, it still is green. And that's actually from the iron that's in the oceans. Rusted iron can be green. In this case, it was. You still had small land masses, right? But then you get these single-celled photosynthesizers. And they produce oxygen. Just like our photosynthesizers today. Trees, plants, plankton. A byproduct of their chemical functions is producing oxygen. So we slowly start to get a buildup of oxygen. Now, oxygen is going to affect everything. It's going to make a lot of changes. But it just takes a long time to build up. Hundreds of millions of years to build up. So in our atmosphere, we still have nitrogen. We still have carbon dioxide. But we're slowly building up oxygen gas. Now that oxygen is going to affect the oceans and it's going to affect the atmosphere. There's going to be a lot of environmental changes that happen with the rise of oxygen. So the oceans turn color, and now the oxygen is binding or reacting with the iron that's in the environment, so in the oceans, and that's going to make the oceans red. This would also be happening on land. So the water on land has dissolved oxygen or dissolved iron. The oxygen also reacts with that dissolved iron. So the waters of the earth are red. Again, this is before any of the life that we're used to. We're still talking single-celled life. You've got your small continents, but rising O2 levels. So O2 levels are on the rise. So what does this do? Well, what happens is these new forms of life, the photosynthesizers, oh, spelled that wrong. The photosynthesizers start to proliferate. There's a lot of them. And as they do that, they use up certain things in the atmosphere. So we see CO2 levels drop. And this happens today when we go through spring and summer and there's a lot of plant growth. CO2 levels come down a little bit because photosynthesizers use carbon dioxide. So CO2 levels start to come down in this early Earth. Also, methane, CH4 levels drop. These are greenhouse gases. So what happens when you have less greenhouse gases? Does it warm up or does it cool down when you have less greenhouse gases? Well, less greenhouse gas makes the global temperature cooler. So you get a colder climate. So quite a few environmental changes have happened over hundreds of millions of years with this rise in oxygen levels. You get changing climates, you get changing atmosphere, the oceans are changing, so everything's starting to change with this increase of oxygen gas, okay? The last thing here, the last thing I want to highlight, as oxygen accumulates, we get this nice layer around the Earth of ozone. So we have some oxygen gas that has gotten into our atmosphere, but this ozone layer, I'll write this down here, and it's a very thin layer, it's a very small part of the atmosphere. Instead of being made up of O2, it's made up of O3. And this will be very important because the ozone layer protects life. So living things affect the environment around them, and the environment around them also affects living things. All right, thank you very much.